So in the interest of time, let's get started because we have folks from the East Coast joining. There's an echo.
Let's mute your audio real quick.
Oh, because you're right. Makes sense. 1 second. I'll do it. So we have folks on Zoom joining from the East Coast. So in the interest of time, let's get started. I think there's still some echo, right? One of the laptops, I think your laptop maybe. Okay, let me see. Okay. Now there's still a mic. Okay, anyway, yeah, now we are good, I think. So welcome to the Silicon Valley chapter of IEEE Computer Society event. I am the chapter chair, Vishnu Pendiala. Ours is the largest chapter in the Silicon Valley section of IEEE with over 3,500 subscribers in our mailing list and a strong following of over 12,300 on Twitter alone. We are uniquely positioned by the virtue of our location and available expertise. So today we have a speaker from Stanford. We are really fortunate to have him. I'll start the recording as well. So today's talk is titled Transforming Hearing Aids into Multifunctional Communication and Health Devices with Artificial Intelligence. There are over 1.5 billion people suffering from hearing impairments, according to the World Health Organization. For all of them, hearing aids are crucially important medical wearable devices. Untreated hearing loss has been linked to increased risks of social isolation, depression, dementia, fall injuries, and other health issues. However, only a small fraction of people who need help with hearing have actually adopted the devices. This is partly due to the historical stigma associated with assistive devices and functional limitations. So in this talk, the speaker will present a new class of multifunctional hearing and health devices with embedded sensors and artificial intelligence. With an extremely energy efficient embedded deep neural network accelerator, these devices continuously classify sound with advanced machine learning algorithms. They enhance speech and reduce noise, serve as a continuous monitor for physical and cognitive activities. They help with automatic fall detection and serve as an alert system, as well as a personal assistant with connectivity to the cloud. These devices stream audio from phones and other devices with 2-day battery life, translate languages, transcribe speech, and remind the wearer of medication and other tasks. Rapid advances in sensors and artificial intelligence are bringing an array of new devices, applications, and user benefits to the world. The speaker will discuss how these technologies are transforming the traditional hearing aids into smart multi-purpose devices, helping people not only hear better, but live better lives as well. So today's speaker is Dr. Achin Bhowmik. He is the Chief Technology Officer at Starkey Hearing, where he is leading the drive to transform hearing aids into multifunctional communication and health devices. He serves as an adjunct professor at Stanford University School of Medicine, where he advises research and lectures in the areas of computational perception and sensory augmentation. He is also an affiliate faculty member of the Stanford Wu Tsai Neurosciences Institute and the Stanford Institute of Human-Centered Artificial Intelligence. Dr. Bhowmik is a member of the Forbes Technology Council, Board of Trustees for the National Captioning Institute, Board of Directors for Mojo Vision and OpenCV, Board of Advisors for the Fung Institute for Engineering Leadership at the University of California at Berkeley, and Biomedical Engineering at the University of Minnesota. His awards and honors include Fellow of the IEEE, Gold Globe Award for Most Innovative Person of the Year in Healthcare, Top Healthcare Technology CTOs by the Healthcare Technology Report, and Times Best Inventions. So without much ado, I request the speaker for today, Dr. Bhowmik, to please address us.
Thank you, Dr. Pendiala. Are you hearing me well in the back? Yes. Okay. I am honored and to be invited and pleased to share my work with you all. So this is going to be about transforming hearing aids. I'll try to not get too deep into technology, but I'm going to explain the ways that we are approaching this, show you some demos, and open for questions if we need to go deeper. So there are 4 topics I want to cover. For those of you that are not familiar with the biology of hearing or hearing loss, I will start with discussing a bit on neuroscience. How do we hear? How does the human hearing system works? Second, I'll talk about why do we get hearing loss? What is hearing loss? What happens if we get hearing loss? What are the negative health impacts of it? Third, I'll talk about hearing aids. For those of you that are familiar with it already, this may be a repeat. For those that are not familiar with hearing aids, you learn about the technology and the history behind it. I'll spend most of the time hopefully in the last bullet, where I'll share the work on transforming hearing aids with modern technology. So very ambitious agenda. I'm going to go quick in the beginning part and then hopefully slow down when we have to. So I start with this. So my life's work is on computational perception. So I'm an engineer who spends a lot of time with neuroscientists and doctors these days at Stanford. But for a long time, I've been interested in how do we humans sense and understand the world? We take it for granted, right? We just wake up in the morning, open our eyes and see everything, and we recognize everything. We hear these sounds and understand what's going on. And we mix these signals to help us get around the world, navigate. But the engineering view of this is that our window to this world is our sensory perception system. So our sensors, you could consider your eyes and ears are sensors that detect light, detect sound waves, and send neural pulses to your cortex. Similarly, your touch sensors around your body, the vestibular sensors that are in your inner ear that detect your balance, of course, smell, taste. So you could think of us as a collection of these sensors, and the cortex that's responsible for processing these signals, mix them up, that allow us to understand. So sensory perception system is our window to the reality. Today's lecture, I'm going to be very focused on hearing. I teach a class at Stanford that talks about all of the senses. We won't have time for that. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of these things, what I find useful from other events is just to listen to some sounds. That's how we'll start. consider some examples of typical auditory inputs. I have 3 different environments that I picked. The first one, when I play the sound, imagine yourself sitting in a restaurant, just like that, with a lot of people around you. You'll hear conversations, clutterings of spoons, forks, tables, etc. on the table. Second one, you'll imagine you have gone out to Muir Woods for jogging or something like that, and the third one is going to be some music. So let's start with this one. You're sitting at a restaurant. Just enjoy for half a minute, just the sounds. We'll come back to what this means. Okay. So nothing special, day to day, right? You're in a restaurant, you're hearing sounds. Next one, you're out jogging. The sound might be like this. The next one, you might be at a party celebrating somebody's birthday. Sorry. Different sounds, different environments, right? The interesting part is that it was so easy for you to distinguish between them. You could almost close your eyes, and just by hearing the sounds, you could reconstruct the scene. Imagine you're at a restaurant. The fascinating part of it is that the ears were only receiving pressure waveform. And so, right now, the fact that I'm just talking and you are able to hear me, just ponder about that for a minute. I'm just imparting pressure on the air molecules around my mouth, right? I'm taking a deep breath, my lungs sending out a wave of air column. Along the way, the air column is getting modulated by my vocal apparatus. Finally, on its way out, I'm moving my tongues in funny ways, the lips creating the high frequency consonants. What's coming out is mostly the low frequency stuff. And my vocal apparatus is mostly creating the vowels, A, E, I, O, U. And then using my lips, I'm creating P, B, T, D, these kind of things. And all it's doing is creating a pressure wave on the air molecules. That's all I'm doing. That's pushing, these air molecules are pushing the neighboring air molecules, that's pushing the neighboring ones. And that's finally resulting in air molecules that are close to your eardrum vibrating. And your eardrum essentially is going in and out as a function of time. The part, some of us are engineers here. So if this is your room level pressure, and you're just creating a little positive and negative pressure, increasing a little bit and decreasing a little bit, just think about the numbers. Anyone remembers what's the air pressure in this room? What's the ambient pressure level? Yeah, 1 atmosphere is about 101.5 kilopascals. So 101 kilonewtons per square meter. And the interesting part is that this variation, plus and minus, if it's 20 micropascals, that means the change relative to the base pressure is less than a billionth. 101 kilopascal, I'm only making a change of 20 micropascal. A good human hearing can hear it. It's just unbelievable performance that your ear systems have, and we take it for granted. So I wanted to spend just a few minutes on the levels of the incredible sensitivity, but more important is you're just getting these wiggles, and they are superimposition of pressure waves created by many things in the room, right? When I'm speaking, it's getting reflected from different places. You're seeing copies of it, your eardrum. And I'm talking in the background, there's this thing going on, another thing going on. And your brain is deciphering all of that, reconstructing the world around you, simply from your eardrum going up and down, and in and out, in and out. It's an amazing system. That's a combination of an amazing sensor that I'll tell you a little bit more about, an amazing computer that's doing signal processing. So it just behooves us to appreciate that a little bit. I'm going to spend a few minutes giving you a lesson in biology, just talking about this here a little bit more. Yes, yes.
In construction, when you're building a building, the heating and air conditioning guys always need to adjust so that they have positive pressure in the building to push, bad air and dirt and stuff out,
Right.
as opposed to sucking it in. But if it's too strong, you can't open or close the door.
Right.
So relative to that difference,
Yeah.
it's physically feelable.
Mhm.
You don't feel sound
Yes,
in your body like you do
yeah,
door.
that's a good question. So,
Yeah, so
Mhm.
the ear, I'm sure, is tuned to certain frequencies.
right.
But is that all there is to it, or?
No, there is more. So, good question. And let me go through this 2 slides, it'll become clear. And if not, then we'll come back to this. So I want to spend just a minute or two about the biology of it, because I'm going to refer to this thing a lot. Ear has 3 sections. The outer section basically is what we call the ear, and we see it, right? That's the pinna, and it's the most useless part of the ear. It's useful, so it's otherwise you wouldn't have it. It helps with directionality a little bit, up and down directionality, because of these funny structures we have. It helps us understand if the source of sound is up or down, but that's pretty much it. And then it funnels the pressure waves into your ear canal. That's about 3 centimeters long, about 1 centimeter diameter. And it has a resonance property such that its resonance frequencies are centered around where most of the speech frequencies happen to be. So, we evolved to understand human conversations more. This is the eardrum. That is what is kind of basically vibrating in and out. In the middle ear, you have 3 bones that are concatenated with and connected with each other. Those are the 3 smallest bones in your body. And they're called malleus, incus, and stapes. So when the eardrum vibrates, these 3 bones work together to amplify the vibration. So this last bone, that's a stapes, its foot plate vibrates at a much higher amplitude than the eardrum. It can amplify about 27 dB. So in and out 27 dB. And then this resonance itself contributes about 3 dB. So you got from sound pressure here to sound pressure at the foot plate of stapes is already 30 dB amplification. dB is a log scale. That's giant amplification. And then inside the cochlea, it's mostly fluid. So this basically vibration of the stapes impart a pressure wave onto the fluid that's in this cochlea. Cochlea is this spiral, snail-shaped spiraling things, about 2.5 turns. And next slide, I'm going to show a little cross-section of this cochlea. So this is a little cross-section of the cochlea. You go back to the last slide, you see how the stapes foot plate is pressing on the bottom side of the cochlea. That's here. So the fluid is sloshing, basically going through the cochlea, coming back out into the lower part here called round window. So imagine you have the pressure waves in the liquid moving the sensory cells over here. So I'm just going to blow it over here. The sensory cells that are responsible for converting these mechanical vibrations into electrical signals are called inner hair cells. So you have a single row of inner hair cells throughout the cochlea in a human ear, about 3,500 of them per ear. Compare that with photosensor cells in your eye. Human eye has about 125 million photosensors in the retina, rods and cone cells, 125 million. And in the ear, you only have 3,500 sensors, inner hair cells, that convert mechanical vibrations into nerve impulses. The way it works is this: the mechanical vibration here moves this tectorial membrane back and forth. That opens little ion channels, and that depolarizes the cell, creating a nerve impulse that is collected through these auditory nerve fibers and sent to your auditory cortex. So that's how I'm going to stop. And the other thing I want to bring to your attention are these 3 rows of similar looking structures, and they're called outer hair cells. All they do is to mechanically amplify the vibrations before they get transduced. And this is an amazing nonlinear amplifier. So for soft sounds, let's say I'm just whispering, your outer hair cells amplify those soft sounds by as much as 50 dB. Remember how I said you got 30 dB in the ear canal and the middle ear? Another 50 dB amplification is done by these outer hair cells. And the way to do that, inside those cells, you have molecules. They're called prestin molecules. They literally elongate and contract in response to the vibrations of sound. So that mechanically amplifies the effect of this back and forth motion of tectorial membrane, such that more signal is created that goes to the brain. So ear is not only just converting sound into neural pulses, but along the way, it's amplifying by as much as 50 dB for those very faint, fine sounds. It's nonlinear, so it doesn't amplify loud sounds. So when I speak loudly, you're not getting any amplification from these outer hair cells. But I'm speaking softly, you're getting huge amplification here. It helps us increase our dynamic range of hearing. And when we get hearing loss, particularly when we get older and we have sensory neural loss, first thing that degrades are these outer hair cells. So that's why I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about those. The last thing on this is you mentioned about the frequency tuning. So that cochlea, that's 2.5 turns, if you just stretch it out, 3,500 sensory cells. The sensory cells close to the base of the cochlea convert the highest frequencies into neural pulses. And as you go to the tip of the cochlea, lower and lower frequencies are getting converted. So your cochlea almost playing a role, it's almost like a piano, almost like a Fourier analyzer. So, sounds coming in that's composed of all frequencies. And as it's propagating through the cochlea, the highest frequency is getting converted into neural pulses at the base. And as you go towards the tip, lower and lower frequencies getting converted. So the nerve fibers that are collecting those neural pulses and sending to your cortex already is decomposing your complex sound frequencies into its frequency components before it goes to the brain. Okay, so I'm going to spend a couple of minutes. This will be the last slide on biology, but this is more of an discussing the characteristics of your hearing system. So pay attention to these numbers. You don't have to memorize it, but it would be good if you develop an appreciation of it, because we will refer to these numbers afterwards. So first thing to look at is frequencies on the x-axis and sound pressure level, SPL, in dBs on the y-axis. You probably read in biology or heard somewhere that human ear or human hearing system is sensitive from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. So that's theoretical. When babies are born and their hearing system is perfectly tuned, that's true. We can hear from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. As we get older, that shrinks. Maybe some of us, we're happy to just have 100 hertz on the low side, so you don't really hear those booms anymore. And on the high side, 8 to 10 kilohertz. That's all we have. We lost from the 10 to 20 kilohertz. In any case, so that's the frequency side. And the sound pressure level goes from, let's say, 0 to 120. So this is how the expression for that dB is 20 times log of sound pressure over a reference value. And that reference value is 20 micropascals. Why did you pick 20 micropascal? Because at 1 kilohertz of sound, that's On an average, that's the audibility threshold for human hearing, 20 micropascal. That's why I told you about 20 micropascal. That's the lowest level of sound a good human hearing system can hear. So that's 20 micropascal. So 20 over 20 is 1, log 1 is 0, times 20 is 0. So that's why we have 0 dB, right? So things to remember is 0 dB at 1 kilohertz is the threshold of human hearing. It gets worse at lower frequencies. So our hearing is not same level of sensitivity as a function of frequency. We're really sensitive in this range from about a kilohertz to about 5 kilohertz. Interestingly, that's where our conversational speech signals happen to be. So when we speak, those are the frequencies we make. So nature has paid attention to what kind of frequencies we create and made sure that our hearing system is most sensitive to that. It goes from how the resonance of the canal is, so the geometry of the ear canals, to the resonance from the 3 middle ear bones, all the way to the cochlea. The whole system is tuned to best work in the range of frequencies where human speech happens to be. A couple of other things to look at is this threshold of feeling, also called threshold of pain, 120 dB. You certainly don't want to be exposed to that. In fact, the quick rule of thumb that I'm going to just tell you and come back to it if there is interest. OSHA says you need to limit your exposure to 85 dB of sound to less than 8 hours. So if the ambient is 85 dB, typically in the cabin of an airplane, it's about 85 dB. So you don't want to be unprotected in your ear more than 8 hours in that environment. And then every 3 dB increase, you have to cut the exposure time by a factor of 2. So if you're at 88 dB, don't be there more than 4 hours. 91 dB, 2 hours. 94, 1 hour. Keep going. So there's rock concerts at 100 dB. You should be there more than 10, 15 minutes without protecting your ear. So that's, yes.
You said 6,000 words.
Right.
Is it true for all languages, or
Yeah.
isn't it a different routine on different languages in the world?
That's a good question you ask. On a first order, in fact, to a large degree, it's language independent, because no matter what language it is, the biology of producing sound is somewhat similar. We create these low frequency sounds with our we're moving the pressure wave out, and the high frequencies that we create with our lips and tongues happen to be at higher frequencies. So whether it's English, German, Hindi, Chinese, of course there are differences, but the fundamental construction of linguistics that humans create, as far as the sensing and understanding goes, are somewhat similar. And I'll come back to this later, because there's a, where is this language dependence? Right. Okay, so I'm going to switch to hearing loss, because I do need to move along. So hearing, first of all, hopefully you got a sense of just how good our good human hearing is. So what is hearing loss? What I'm showing you here is called an audiogram. So if you complain you have, you're not hearing that well, and you go to an audiologist or an ENT, they'll put you in a quiet sound booth. They'll put either over-the-ear devices or in-ear transducers. And then what they'll do is they'll play pure tone sound at specific frequencies and vary their pressure level to see where is your audibility threshold for a given frequency. So, and 0 dB is normalized to normal hearing. So this patient here, whose audiograms are recorded, red corresponding to right ear and blue corresponding to left ear. Anything below 20 dB is considered normal hearing. Really, 0 is ideal. Remember, that's the 20 micropascal. 0 is ideal. Nobody has ideal hearing. If your hearing is up to 20 dB, means you don't have to amplify the sound any more than 20 dB for you to hear. You're considered to have normal hearing. And if your hearing level is between 20 to 40 dB, you're considered to have mild hearing loss. 40 to 70 dB, moderate hearing loss. 70 to 90, severe hearing loss. And over 90, profound hearing loss, or almost deaf. So this patient, it's pretty common. This is any 70 to 80-year-old gentleman or lady, typically will have this sort of a sloping hearing loss. It turns out low frequencies are fine, the vowels are, but the high frequencies tend to degrade quite quickly. So this sloping sensorineural hearing loss, this is characteristic of age-related hearing loss as you get older. This slope gets worse and worse. So now so I'll come back to this, but here is another way to look at it. So this is where, this is another way to look at it, to see what sort of frequencies do we create when we speak, right? So it turns out all of the so below 1 kilohertz, these are mostly vowels, A, E, I, O, U, M, V. They have quite a bit of energy in them, between 30 to 60 dB, but they're in the lower frequencies. On the other extreme are the fricatives, the consonants, F, TH, S. So when it's the first, thirsty, those fricatives are at high frequency, between 4 and 5 kilohertz. They also happen to be lower energy, like 30 dB. So when we speak, those high frequency consonants are getting created by the lips opening and closing. Those transitions are lower in energy, but higher in frequency. 30 dB, 4 to 5 kilohertz. Now let's look at our patient. 4 to 5 kilohertz, 30 dB. Do you think this person is going to hear any of those F, TH, S? No, because his hearing loss in those frequencies is in the 50 dB to 80 dB. So this gentleman is going to hear all the vowels fine, but they're not going to hear the consonants. So typical complaint we hear from patients with hearing loss, they say, don't scream, I can hear you. My problem is I don't understand what you're saying. So they hear fine because the vowels and low frequencies are just, they're normal hearing there. So screaming doesn't help because you're just raising this to be uncomfortable levels. Their problems are high frequencies. They lost the sensitivity there, so they don't understand speech. That's very common for sensorineural hearing loss.
Is it the same thing as auditory processing?
That's a good question you ask. So, and I'll give a short answer now and long answer later. I'll come back to it. It starts with degradation in the sensory system that you're not hearing well because these frequencies are simply not getting sent to your brain. But if your brain is deprived of those frequencies for a long time, 2 years, 5, 10 years, the neurons in your auditory cortex that are responsible for processing those frequencies, they have no purpose. So they die out or get repurposed. It's called neural atrophy. Neurons, it's like use it or lose it. So the neurons that are not functional, not getting signals, they tend to die out, which is why there is a good correlation between hearing loss and dementia and Alzheimer's. But the first thing that happens is auditory processing disorder, like you're saying. So if the sensor is not sending the signal and the neurons are dying out, even if we fit somebody with hearing aids, they need a lot of time of rehabilitation to gain back the processing. So even if I amplify, it may not immediately provide a value because of the auditory processing disorders. But I will come back to it later.
Just answered?
Yeah, the question was, what is the role of auditory processing disorder? Is this only the degradation in the ear or something happens in the brain? Okay, so what I want to do now is, for those of you that don't have hearing loss, I showed a lot of numbers. I talked about mild hearing loss, moderate hearing loss, severe hearing loss, profound hearing loss. What does all that mean? So I borrowed a simulation from the Ear Science Institute in Australia, and I'm going to play a music, and it's going to simulate from normal hearing loss to mild hearing loss to moderate hearing loss. If you had that level of hearing loss, how would this music sound to you? So listen to this. That's moderate hearing loss. That is how severe hearing loss is. Yeah, yes. That's profound hearing loss. So the reason I show this is to want to develop an appreciation for hearing loss. For those of us who have family members who don't hear well, be patient with them because that's their life, right? If they're not using an amplification device, we sometimes lose patience, saying, "How come you're not responding?" We get this is because they're cut off from those frequencies. And I like this quote from Helen Keller, who was both blind and deaf, and she said, "Blindness cuts us off from things, but deafness cuts us off from people." So it's terrible to be both blind and deaf or either, but that was her take at what sense to her was most important. Okay, so these numbers. Just a quick look at how big is this problem. So 1.5 billion people, according to World Health Organization, live with some degree of hearing loss. And 500 million of them have disabling hearing loss. WHO defines that to be 40 dB. So if the sound needs to be amplified 40 dB, you are disabled. That means your productivity at work is going to be lower, your satisfaction at home and effectiveness in communicating with family members is going to suffer. So 40 dB, why did they pick that? So so what's 40 dB? Remember that 20 log P over P0? That's 10,000 times amplification in sound intensity. So I have to amplify the sound 10,000 times before you can barely hear it. So that's why they call it disabling hearing loss. And there's 500 million people that have it. So there's good news, bad news. The good news is we are living longer, right? The 85 plus is the fastest growing age group today in the world, percentage wise. And 100 plus is the second fastest growing age group. We are living longer. But the bad news with that is we are going to have a lot many more people with hearing loss. And we are also subjecting ourselves to unhealthy levels of sound. There are primarily two reasons you get hearing loss. One is genetic, you're just born to wrong parents, and you got genetic mutations that with age, you're going to get that sloppy sensory neural loss. But there is a lot of people that get hearing loss from sound-induced incidences. You go to those concerts, you perform, or you like to go hunting and shooting with loud sound, and you don't protect your ear, you're going to get hearing loss. And those are irreversible. Once the sensory cells degrade, you don't get them back. So there's a lot more people that are going to get hearing loss, according to World Health Organization. This data is from Johns Hopkins. Dr. Lane published. It shows the prevalence of hearing loss as a function of age group. So you can see if you are 80 or older, almost every one of us have hearing loss. So it just comes with age. If you're in the 50 to 60 years, 30 to 40% of us have hearing loss. Different color codes are different degrees of hearing loss. It's just something that you have to get used to. We take it, we sort of are not surprised when someday I need to go and get glasses now because I'm old enough. I can't read, right? Fine, but that comes with age. So does hearing loss. It comes with age. And this is my last slide on the hearing loss. There is this well-studied effect, negative effect, or comorbidity of hearing loss. What happens when you get hearing loss? It starts with anxiety. If you're not hearing well, your anxiety level goes up. We evolved to stay calm and comfortable because of the signals we get with our sensors. Try closing your eyes and just be in a room and walk around. You're going to get nervous. You're going to get anxious because you don't see things. Am I running into something? The eyes are not only helping us understand that's a chair, that's a monitor. It's helping us stay comfortable and calm because I know things are under control. There isn't a lion out there that's chasing me, right? Same thing with hearing. It's not just about understanding what he said. It's about keeping ourselves grounded in peace, knowing that everything is under control. There isn't a dog barking or just things. So first thing happens, what happens is that people's anxiety go up. Next thing that happen are the social isolation and loneliness. People who don't hear very well, they don't like to go to parties or talk to folks. They like to, stay in their rooms and spend more time by themselves, right? So that unfortunately is directly related to higher chances of cognitive impairment. So Dr. Lin's study at Johns Hopkins also showed, just one second, I'll come to you, is that people with mild hearing loss have two times higher chances of dementia. 2 times, double the risk. People with moderate hearing loss 3 times, and people with severe to profound hearing loss 5 times higher chances of dementia compared to people with normal hearing. So it was done on a large scale, thousands of people studied, and more promising, a study that just came out, a large scale study that was done for many years, is you can rehabilitate. And when people start to hear better, their cognitive health improves. This was a study that was anticipated for many years, and the results just came out. Yeah, you had a.
So about the social isolation and loneliness.
Right.
And willing to go out in the public. My observation is that's not just the fault of the person.
Yeah.
But it's socially induced.
Yes.
Because the style of restaurants these days
Yes.
is to have very
It's loud.
hard surfaces, high noise reflection.
Right.
Whereas 60s and earlier restaurants designs with very high noise absorption.
Yes.
I find it very distressing
Yes.
that I can't find a restaurant that I can hear in there that
Yeah.
used to be.
Yeah.
Very easy, and I claim it's not age related.
Yeah, you're totally right. So that one is, so this is just the effect of those, and sorry, the socialization, that's just the effect of starting to get, because what you described, if a long time I would explain that it's because your people with hearing loss, their dynamic range reduces. So the signal to noise ratio that's needed for us to understand what's going on, it's about 2 dB for people with normal hearing. That means when I'm talking to you, your sound speech needs to be about 2 dB higher than the background noise. And that goes up to 8 dB for people with just mild hearing loss. And if the noise is so high in the restaurant, then you're simply not going to understand anything that's going on. And that's frustrating. So yeah, we are causing some of that as far as this, and that results in the cognitive impairment because we are staying mostly by ourselves and not being socially engaged. There is also the physical side of things. Fall, and that is so in some ways, when the results came out, it was surprising, but now there's been a lot of rationalization. People with mild hearing loss have 3 times higher chances of falling. And then for every 10 dB higher loss beyond that, 40% more risk of falling. So it's for primarily 2 reasons. One is we use sound cues to stay balanced. It's not just the vestibular sensors. And the vestibular sensors, they're genetically predispositioned for degradation, just like your inner hair cells are. They have the same structure. Anyway, so I want to go forward and get to the technology side. Hearing aids. Yes.
Quick question. Is the loss of hearing the reason it causes dementia? Is that because of loss of brain activity?
So the theory is that, and it's been shown with fMRI and stuff, there is a shrinkage in the cortex that happens Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yes. Question was the dementia. Why is there a positive correlation between higher chances of dementia with hearing loss? And the reason behind that is there is correlation of neural atrophy or shrinkage of the brain with hearing loss. And the reason behind that is this use it or lose it. So if we are not feeding the brain with information, our brain, the cortex, is structured into segments. The visual cortex is at the back, auditory cortex are two sides of the head, somatosensory cortex that is responsible for touch is on the top. So think about the auditory cortex. The cortex itself also has frequency mapping, just like cochlea has the frequency mapping. The corresponding mapping part on the cortex also has frequency mapping. Now imagine if I lost all of the sensitivity in the cochlea for the higher frequencies, because the patient I showed you lost hearing from 3 kilohertz to 8 kilohertz. Those neurons in my auditory cortex that were primarily evolved to process those high frequencies, they have no job to do. And the body is, our vascular system is ruthless in efficiency. It doesn't want to feed neurons that are performing no jobs. So that's the theory why there is a shrinkage of the brain when there is sensory deprivation. So your sensor is not sending signals, that part of the process is not needed. So as a result, there is fMRI study that have shown the brain shrinks, the cortex shrinks as people have higher and higher levels of hearing loss, and they're not doing anything with it. And it gets worse, which is why you have this higher chances of dementia from loss of neurons in your brain, the longer you are living with hearing loss and the more degrees of hearing loss that you have. Okay, let me talk about hearing aids. How many of you are familiar with hearing aids? Can I see a show of hands? I have seen one. Okay, small number of you. So these were the early hearing aids. Anybody knows who this gentleman is? Yep, Ludwig van Beethoven. So I was lucky to visit his house in Bonn, Germany, and that's a museum now. And his house actually has this ear trumpet that he used. So this ear trumpet essentially is a passive amplifier. You got big area that's bringing in sound, and it's funneling into your ears. The area is getting smaller, so you got a mechanical amplification. Worked really well those days. And by the way, Beethoven supposedly lost his hearing, and he was, to the extent that towards the end of his life, he had to finish his performance and turn back to see people clap because he couldn't hear people clap. And yet he was producing beautiful music. And these were then the hearing aids from mid-1900s. So the vacuum tube-based hearing aids, that those body-worn device that would go on your belt, and you'll bring the sound into your ear through the cable. And the transistors, you're at AMD here. Transistors are a big deal. First, transistors were used in hearing aids, not in computers or telephones or anything like that. So this is 1979 hearing aid. And then something interesting happened. In the early 2000s, amazing miniaturization happened in core technologies that made it possible to make smaller hearing aids. One, the micro electromechanical systems, MEMS microphones, speakers, those started to become available. Digital signal processor chips that allowed you to process sound like your cochlea does. So, bring in sound of Fourier analysis, break them out into constituent frequencies, and then match the amplification to the patient's audiogram. So if you need, let's say, 40 dB amplification for 2 kilohertz, well, then those frequency band will be amplified more. Sounds like what you want to do, but it was not possible for DSPs, right? So so this was boom time for hearing aids, except I borrowed this image from a BBC's 2009 article. The headline said, "The shame of wearing hearing aids." So, there was this stigma, and a lot of people can say a lot of things about it. Those that are in product designs, they'll say, of course, this is one ugly device. This yellow tube that's over there, I don't want to wear that, it looks ugly. Or this big and ugly thing behind my ear, I don't want it. So maybe a lot of that had to do with how badly these things were designed. Second part, I know it because I experienced it, they did not work well. So two reasons. One, even though they were able to split into different frequencies and amplify differently for different frequencies, they could not do anything with signal to noise ratio. So if you amplify the noise and the speech, remember that restaurant place where it's already noisy and that thing is getting amplified more. You think you're going to use hearing aids? No, right? So people didn't like it. Other thing was feedback. Professor Pendiala was standing here and he was getting feedback, right? He's like speaking to the mic. The speaker is feeding back into the mic. The hearing aid, the microphone and the speaker are very close to each other. And so it used to be, squealing type of device back then. Anyway, so I want to switch gear to the last section of this slide discussion. I want to share some of my work. So I was working on computational perception. I was vice president and general manager of perceptual computing group at Intel, competitor to AMD, and working on AI and vision and sound processing and all of that. And this opportunity came about on, working on hearing aids. This was 2017. And I couldn't believe how bad those devices were and just how much better they could be made. So I'm going to show you a slide that I made in 2017, right after I left Intel and started working on hearing aids. This slide is that old. This is now 7 years old. So I said, we're going to do three things. One, we'll improve the design so that even if people see these devices, they won't dislike it. Make them look good. Next, I called it intelligent hearing. 2017, remember what had happened 7 years, in that 7 years, from 2000 to 2012, 2007, so 5 years. Computer vision, because many of us worked on computer vision for a long time, it got totally transformed with deep neural networks. Prior to 2012, I used to teach a class at Berkeley on computer vision. There was one lecture on neural network, and 15 other lectures were traditional techniques, signal processing, edge detection, and all kinds of ways to do computer vision. And today, if you take a computer vision class at Stanford or Berkeley, it's all neural networks because it does such a great job. So we knew neural nets or AI does an amazing job in doing signal processing, except somehow nobody brought it to hearing aids. So I wanted to do sound processing with AI. So that was what we wanted to do. Next, this thing about, I call it just blatantly copying Steve Jobs' strategy for iPhone. Do you remember when Steve Jobs launched iPhone? He said, today we're launching 3 things, right? And he described how it is going to be a mobile phone. He's launching an internet device. And then what is the third thing? Yep. And then later he said, are you getting it? It's actually the same thing that does all 3 things. So I felt if you have this device that's so good and that you want to wear all the time, why does it only do one thing? In your ear, it should do health monitoring. Okay. And then the last thing is, if it is in your ear, it should become conduit to the world of information. Like, let's imagine you want to have a chat, or you want a question. What's the weather outside? It should just answer in your ear, right? It should have connection to the cloud and be your personal assistant. What is my next meeting? Today you have ChatGPT. Hopefully you're, a few more imaginations. Like, catch me up on what happened last night or yesterday, or what's the meaning of life? Or, I'm having a little elevated temperature, a little cough. What do you think is going on? Or I'm thinking of this summer going to Europe. Should I go to Italy or UK or France? And then you have a conversation with them. Anyway, so that was 2017 though. This was the vision. So I'm going to now walk you through what we've done. First thing is, first thing I want to talk about is design. So, today we are in the era of AirPods, and Apple has done a great job in designing devices. So we all love the AirPods, right? It's like they are cool and nobody's ashamed of wearing AirPods. You find anybody in, not wanting to show it off. They're cool devices, right? They're nice designs. So we wanted to do that. So I'm going to show you my hearing aids now. But first of all, I've been interacting with a lot of you. Did you guys notice I've been wearing them already? I wear them all the time, and I don't have hearing loss. I wear them all the time. I'll explain the reasons I wear it, but I'm wearing them now. And very hard to see. They're nearly invisible, right? Not that yellow, ugly, thick tube anymore. When I check it out, you'll see that these are the devices. Electronics go into this small little package that I believe is more beautiful than AirPods, better designed. And it goes behind my ear. And this tube is simply a translucent conducting wire. That's it. No thick plastic tube that brings sound. Basically, this just brings electrical signal. At the end of it is the speaker, tiny speaker that can create up to 100 dB of sound. Of course, I don't need to create that, right? So, and so I don't have hearing loss. Why do I wear them? I'll come to that, answering that a little later. But let's talk about the intelligent hearing. So back to engineering view of computational perception. So if you look at your hearing system, you have the ear, and then you have the auditory cortex on two sides. You can roughly think about the ear as doing these three things. They're your directional microphones. You're actually, you know where the sound is coming from, not just what the sound is, right? Is the sound from there? Is the sound from there? So, with a combination of the pinna, the shape of the ear, as well as some circuitry in the low levels of the brain, we have an amazing ability to localize sound. Like, where is the sound coming from? So we know that. I already talked about nonlinear amplifier. It's hugely beneficial. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to hear. There would be no dynamic range. There's 0 dB to 120 dB. That's a huge dynamic. There's 12 orders of magnitude. It's possible because we have nonlinear amplifier, like I explained. Next, frequency analyzer. We already talked about that, right? The ear is a frequency analyzer before it sends signal to the brain. Okay, so those three things. Next, the brain does all the magic after that. It allows us to solve the processing that's going on. It allows us to recognize the sound. And yes, a healthy auditory cortex does noise reduction and understands speech. And some people say, well, how will brain do noise reduction? Well, just imagine yourself in a cafeteria. That's just a background sound. You hear the barista, you hear a lot of conversations. You're waiting for your friend and enjoying all the other sound that's going on in the meantime, the background music and everything. And your friend shows up and you hear your name called. In an instant, your brain suppresses everything else, allowing you to pay attention to what is that you want to hear. So brain has this ability. The healthy cortex has the ability to noise reduction. It recognizes the sound and amplifies some in the brain, not in the ear. It amplifies some and suppresses others. How does brain do that? Well, yes, brain is the most complex machine we know of, but at a fundamental level, it's a neural network. It's a network of neurons, right? And so there's the saying, we don't hear with our ears, but hear with our brain. Now what I want to show you is, first I'll show you the state of signal processing in those old hearing aids up until 2017. So what hearing aids used to do is this. So the computational model of those hearing aids with DSP. So sound, this is sound wave that comes in. First, you have a series of frequency bands as outputted from a frequency Fourier analyzer. So the first thing you have in the DSP after the microphone signals come in is a frequency analysis that produces a number of channels. It could be 12 to 24 channels. And each of the channels are producing distinct frequency bands. So on the left is lower frequencies. You can see undulations, lower frequencies. On the right-hand side, higher frequencies, right? So your cochlea does that, but cochlea is not working well. Let's have hearing aid do that. Next, nonlinear amplification. So you see how this is nonlinear? It's not a linear function. So for those that lost their outer hair cells, I told you those outer hair cells are the ones that are doing this amazing job of nonlinear amplification. But if you lost them, your hearing aid has to take that on. So the engineers were smart then in following this series of frequency bands with corresponding nonlinear amplifiers, whose characteristics would be determined by your audiogram, because it's patient specific. One may have a lot of loss at certain frequency, other has other levels of loss. So these bands would be patient specific, and then you'll program that in the DSP. Audiologists will have a console, they can put the numbers in, and the fitting software for the hearing, it takes care of the rest. So it was great. Next, this is the part I want to spend a minute or two for signal processing people. This is like, it reminded me of computer vision prior to 2012. No neural nets, handcrafted amplitude modulation filters. So there might be dozens of them to maybe 100, 200 of them. This slowly varying amplitude modulation filters, and the engineers would build them so that the audiologists in their fitting console would have to pick certain portions of one filter, let's say filter number 1, to filter, and some portions of filter 13, some portions of filter 25, combine them, and that seems to work very well in a restaurant. So that becomes your restaurant mode for the hearing aid. And then if I pick different ratios of different filters, well, they seem to work well in a home environment. How did they find that? Empirically. They would basically, this took years and decades to optimize, but no good, which is why hearing aids were not good enough. They will amplify everything, and it's like, it's just, if you're just playing with some handcrafted filters, out in the wild, there's no way to know what sort of signal the hearing aids are collecting. You can't produce these things in the lab and be done. But computer vision showed us, if you instead, or in addition to this, if you have a neural network that takes the output of these things, and then that neural network will be trained with data, so noisy speech coming in and clean speech going out, let's say as an example, right? And then the neural net's trained, its weights and biases are all tuned, you load it into your hearing aid, and then out in the wild, it would respond well. We know neural nets do that from computer vision. So we wanted to check that by adding to the 2017's hearing aids this one more layer. And then I claimed it's our attempt at copying the cortical processing in the brain. So my claim was like, the hand-wavy explanation was, all this is okay, but they're only compensating for the functions you lost in the ear. So this is doing frequency analysis, doing nonlinear amplification for outer hair cells. And then these are at best comparable to what goes on in the low levels in the brainstem and midbrain. But hey, what's happening in the cortex? You mentioned about auditory processing disorder. That doesn't happen in the ear, that happens in the brain. So can I borrow a circuitry in the chip and have it do computation like the brain does, and see what happens to the hearing aids? Well, so this was the theory, and we built a prototype first, and this was in 2018, 2019 timeframe. And we built a hearing aid that's giant, at least the processor of it. Basically, giant, and it was an NVIDIA graphics card, sorry, AMD people. At the time, they were the popular GPUs in 2018. And so we built this giant system to simulate what could be a hearing aid. And I'm now going to show you a demo. This is an old demo as well, a real capture in our cafeteria, Starkey cafeteria. It's going to have 2 segments. First segment will be like you're sitting in the cafeteria and hearing all the cacophony. Second part, we process that through that giant computer that is emulating a hearing aid with a deep neural network, and to see if we can clarify the noise.
Is there a way to?
So I think they have to do it. They have to.
How about if I do this?
No, you can do that too. Just hold it here. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to play this. Oh, sorry. Can you raise the volume there? Is that gone? So this was a little faint. I don't know, maybe we can see at the console if the volume can be raised. Otherwise, I'm going to play it one more time anyway. So essentially, the first part was like typical cafeteria environment. You're just sitting there. And then the second half, we process the same signal through this deep neural network for enhancing speech and reducing noise. So it should become understandable. Okay. You can understand anything, right?
Really strange.
Yeah.
For 2 or 3 seconds. 18 bars.
So this was like magic in 2019. We felt this changes the hearing aids because you're not just amplifying, you're amplifying, cutting down noise and enhancing speech in a way that, you needed neural networks to do it. It took us a couple of years to translate that into a chip. These hearing aids are amazingly power efficient. So because they cannot run out of battery. So these hearing aids I just showed you, they have 50 hours of battery life on a single charge, 50 hours, 50. And they have Bluetooth radio. So they stream my phone calls from my phone, the audiobooks and YouTube and everything. And I'm listening to my phones all the time. So they're my AirPods, essentially. And they're clarifying the world of sound. Even with my normal hearing, in a restaurant when it's noisy, I get 4 to 5 dB better signal to noise ratio. And even with my normal hearing, I enjoy that, right? Because it's helping me hear better. And it's my AirPods, and they do other things, I'll tell you, which is why I use them. So basically, we built it. Yeah.
The sound or?
Yeah, it can. So the amplification, first of all, when you go to an audiologist, they will program these devices to automatically amplify as for a frequency band that will match your audiogram. So to bring your hearing to normal level, right? But while that's going on, what neural net is doing is pre-processing the signal so that that amplification is not done on unnecessary sound, like noise you don't want to amplify. You're out walking or jogging, I don't want to amplify the wind noise. Or
The first slide, you need to have some dB level.
Yeah.
You cannot have beyond the dB level for longer time.
Yeah. So
You're wearing it constantly.
yes, yeah. And so for me, because I have no hearing loss, I am not amplifying this. But what for me, what it's doing is cutting back the noise, but enhancing the speech, improving the SNR. But the maximum output level is not exceeding the safe levels. But that said, it comes with an app. It's an amazing app it comes with. So let's say I just want to amplify because, I want to hear what's going on over there. I can come to my app and I can increase the volume by a few dBs, right? So you can do that or reduce it, increase it. But for a patient, first thing to do is to measure their audiogram and bring the hearing to a base level through the amplifications of the device, right? So that was already done in hearing aids, except this neural net allows you to preferentially amplify speech, cut back wind noise, cut back your car noise, airplane noise.
When you go to a concert or something, the concert is intended to have multiple frequencies.
Yes. So yeah, even when you speak, it has multiple frequencies as well. So that has nothing to do with because the frequency dependent amplification is a function of the patient, not a function of what's going on out there. Okay, I'll come towards the end. We can discuss more to see if it's confusing.
Voice cancellation.
Good question. No. Yeah, so we can't. The reason we can't cancel the noise, we can, but we don't want to. If I want to cancel noise, I have to block and occlude your ear first, because if the sounds mixed up with all kinds of things and going in my ear, the amount of opposite phase I need to create to cancel that is huge. There's no way to do it. So any noise cancellation device first occludes your ear, whether it is AirPod Pro or Sony or Bose headset. With hearing aids, we don't want to do that, because if we block your ear or occlude you, you don't want to use it for more than an hour or two. So you need these natural signals to pass through. We call it an open fit product, open fit device. It doesn't block the ear canal. So hearing aid performs a very different function than noise cancellation headsets. Okay, so two other things I'll talk about, and then we can discuss more. Health monitoring. So what about it? Why do you bother monitoring health with hearing aids, right? So the idea is that, well, yeah, you can do that with your Apple Watch or your Fitbit, but for hearing aid, we want to do it because it's more accurate way of doing physical activity tracking. So what we do, we're the first company to do it. We put tiny MEMS IMUs, inertial measurement units, in both of these devices. And what we found is the accuracy of tracking the number of steps, running, jogging, is a lot more accurate than what you can get from the wrist. Wrist overestimates step counts by about 20%. You get false signals if I'm doing this. And the ear, you don't typically bob your head arbitrarily. So head is a very good place for it. But if that was gimmicky, here is what makes it worth it. So I told you how people with hearing loss have higher chance of falling. So this is data from Johns Hopkins that showed people with mild hearing loss are 3 times more likely to fall. So our patients are the ones that are falling. So we built a fall classifier with the IMU in there. It was initially we collected data set of 200 people, and with a collaboration with the university, controlled fall on carpet. And then we designed robots to collect more fall data. And then once we had the first classifier done and released in the market in 2020, unfortunately, a lot of our patients fall, so we have real data. Now we have the world's most accurate fall detector of any kind. So the most popular fall detection device actually sold by Philips, and it's a pendant, right? You use it, and so few things. One, it's not very accurate. Second, that unfortunate moment when somebody fell, they didn't have that pendant on because nobody plans to fall that day, right? Or they're out of battery, they didn't even know it. Hearing aid, if it's out of battery, you know instantly because you're not hearing well, right? And the other thing is we got 2. So there's, we have lower false positives because we're comparing the data from both of them. And this one really is very fulfilling because I was giving a talk, and one of our audiologist customers who buy hearing aids from us and fit patients, he himself has hearing loss, so he uses his devices. He lives in Minnesota. He came to me in a talk and said, "You saved my life. You should know that." So it turns out, in a winter in Minnesota, he fell in the driveway and instantly became unconscious. His hearing aids, our devices detected that he fell, sent alert messages to his 2 sons and his wife, and they came and took him to the hospital. He had a dislocated shoulder. He said, "I could have died." So, I was getting interviewed by Wall Street Journal about this hearing aid, and I told them the same story. They said, "Oh, would that patient be willing to talk to us?" He did. So he was gracious enough to tell his story. So now we're happy that more people are turning on the feature, because we don't want to just make it default turn on, but older people should turn it on. The way it works is the fall is detected, it gives you 60 seconds to cancel the alert. If you're fine, you just get up and cancel the alert. But if not, your loved ones are going to get alerted. You have to put their numbers in when you set up the hearing aid. And then they will know where you fell because the app brings up the GPS map and shows where you fell. So it's amazing. So no hearing aid ever thought of doing that, but it turned out to be good. Other thing, measuring social engagement. Remember how we said loneliness? So imagine if my grandma used to be, socially engaged, go to parties and talk to people, and then suddenly they're not as socially engaged. I want to know that. Maybe do something about it. So what we built is like we have machine learning classifier. The AI system in the hearing aid has 2 stages. First stage is classification. Like I want to do an acoustic classification of the environment. So we can detect speech, we can detect what's going on around you. And we can measure loneliness from it. How much did you talk? How much people talking around you? And we can detect, is it TV sounds or is it people speaking? Are you listening to music? Are you going coffee? Are you going outdoor? So we can actually do a quantification of social engagement. And if the scores are low, then your loved ones might want to help you, saying, why are you so lonely? So this is something that we're experimenting with. It's already a feature in the device. That brings me to the last thing. So sounds gimmicky. You're hearing it, a personal assistant? Yes, we did it. So here are the 3 features we built. Sounds unbelievable, but yeah, they translate languages. The translation engine is in the cloud, so you have to be connected to the phone. But this device is your personal conduit. So when I'm speaking to my gardener who speaks Spanish, when he's speaking Spanish, I can hear in English in my hearing aid. When you are in France, you don't speak French, but you want to have a conversation. So the way it's built is that you can have your transcription is already playing in your ear, but other person may not have hearing aid. So we allow you to show your translation on your device so they can see it. So you can have a good conversation. People ask me, how well does it work? As well as Google Translate. So what it will not do well is if you are having a conversation among many parties, it might take a quarter of your sentence, half of your sentence, quarter of your sentence, and then the result is a garbage, right? But if you're having a one-on-one conversation, it works beautifully. Next, voice to text transcription. So in a bad SNR environment, patients can turn it on. And besides hearing, they will see live transcription on the screen. So many people use that when they struggle to hear well. And the last part I'm quite excited about. But when we released it, there was no ChatGPT. So when we released it, it was Q&A. So I can double tap my hearing aid and ask a question, what's the weather outside? And it gives me the answer in my ear. Who's the president of Timbuktu? Give me an ear. It's like the more important, my neighbor, who's a senior executive at Apple, his popular function for this is remind me. So he says, when I'm going out, I'm just double tapping and saying, remind me that I need to pick up Zara at 5 p.m. Come 5 p.m., his hearing aid is telling him, 5 p.m., time to pick up Zara. So you could remind yourself of anything. Older patients are using it for medication reminders because they've got plenty of medicines to take, and your hearing aid will remind you, now's the time to take this, now's the time to take that. And we soon have LLM interface. So you could just sit back and have a walk and have a conversation with your hearing aid about anything you want to talk about. It's coming. So those 3 things. And so Bloomberg Business Week, I'm pretty proud that they wrote an article after seeing the demos of this. They said the future of wearable technology is called a hearing aid. So even if your ears are fine, you might want a device that translates. At the time, it was 27 languages. Today, we do 77. Tracks fitness, monitors vital signs, and etc. So the things I didn't have here, I should mention. We're collaborating with Stanford. Stanford and started working closely together. We have published a paper recently and a feature going out, fall prevention. So not just detect when somebody fell, the hearing aid will constantly analyze your gait. And if you are at a risk of falling because your gait is unbalanced, we will warn the patients. Next, we are working on a multi-sensory hearing aid that can measure temperature in the ear. That's what doctors measure temperature. Blood oxygen saturation, SpO2. Your ear actually has a rich supply of blood. So pulse oximetry, we do it on the finger. That's not the best place. The deoxygenation gets rapidly detectable in the ear. So we have a SpO2 measurement, heart rate measurement. So those devices will come soon. We're doing a patient validation study right now. So we're on this basically mission to transform hearing aids. We got a whole bunch of awards. I'm proud of the Times Best Inventions, AI Breakthrough Award. We got twice. So that gives me a lot of pride. Any one of you that wants to read the technical details behind it, there is a detailed paper we published in IEEE computer that pretty much all the features I talked about today. And I think it's freely downloadable as well. That said, oh, sorry, yeah, so this is my, I like to show this as the last slide. This is one of our quintessential patient. So, as an engineer, I was working on robots and drones and computers and AI, and nobody smiled back at me, those computers. But this is a patient who came with with a lot of complaints about not hearing well. Yeah, young lady, and when we fitted with hearing aids, first that was her first expression. Unbelievable. She didn't think she was going to get that sense back. She didn't think that was possible. And then she jumped down from the chair and hugged mommy and cried and sobbed. So I see a lot of that these days. So basically, not to brag, but I'll tell you, even as an engineer, I took the last year to get certified to fit hearing aids in California. It's a rigorous process. I kind of had to pass a lot of tests, written tests and practical tests in Sacramento and everything. But I'm deeply passionate about this area. And the reason I bring it up is like any of you need hearing help or somebody in your family does, reach out to me and I'll help you. Questions? Yeah.
Question.
Yes.
What would happen if, the human mind has a great ability to adapt? What would happen if you took a hearing aid with somehow it would have to be controlled, perhaps by a complex mathematical formula, but for each hearing range, if it divides it by a certain percentage, so let's say 500 CPU, and you drop it by 29%.
Yep.
And you end up doing that, adjusting for all the different amounts of
Yes.
hearing in each range.
The frequency ranges, right?
Yeah. And then the brain, over a period of time,
Yeah.
might adapt
Yes.
to using the lower ones to
Yes.
hear what are actually higher sounds.
Yeah. That's a great question you asked. Thank you for asking that. So there is this well-known and well-understood. Yeah, sorry, I
Can you
the
please
question. Yeah.
repeat the question?
So
for
the question was, well, in the hearing aid, fundamentally, what we're doing is providing different levels of sound amplification for different frequency bands. What if our brain got adjusted to our hearing? So let's say I got a particular type of hearing loss. So I'm getting low levels of certain frequency bands into my brain, but didn't my brain adjust to handle that? And now you are playing with that system, providing me amplification. How will the brain handle it? Right? It captures it.
It's kind of like a mother can hear her child cry
Yeah.
in Europe. Or
Yes.
in America, it seems like,
Yes. Yeah. No, that's a great question you ask.
So if, but that's because that ear has adapted to
Yeah.
the sound of that baby.
Right.
And conversely, if you hear a really deep voice from your wife, something, your brain after a while is going to say, wait a minute, that's a higher pitch.
Yes. Yeah. So let me address that. It's pretty much similar, same question. So let's build this logic up. First is that you are being put into a sound booth and you are being evaluated for what you hear and what you don't hear. So we're first determining what you're not hearing. Your brain is not even getting those signals, right? So if we measure your audiogram, we know exactly where you are because the patient is in charge. They are basically clicking a button if they hear and clicking a button only when they hear. So I'm establishing where is your audibility threshold for a given frequency band. So that's a direct measurement of your auditory system. And if you are living with that sensory degradation, your brain's working extra hard to make sense of things because the quality of signal going into your brain is completely degraded. You're working hard. So it's called cognitive load of hearing. What happens to the audiologist will say, most patients when they come, they not only complain about, I don't hear well, they also complain that at the end of the day, I am damn tired. That's because they're working harder to understand what's going on. Like, they're tuning in. They're just putting so much mental energy, so dedicating so much of their brain processing in trying to understand what's going on, and their brain's overworking. cognitive load is high. First thing that happens after someone got fitted with hearing aids and went home for a week or two and then got rehabilitated. I'll come back to the rehabilitation part. But then they come back for their first visit after a month and they say, look, one, I'm hearing better because those are amplified, and I'm not as tired anymore because your brain's not working, not having to work as hard. It's same thing with vision. When you have refractory problems and you don't want to wear glasses, you have to work extra hard to read the thing, and you're going to get tired, and there'll be cognitive load. Put on your glasses, see, life gets to be easier, right? Same thing happens with hearing. But there is now back to your question, this is a really good question about, didn't your brain somewhat get used to those things? Yeah. So what your audiologist will say, once they fit you with hearing aids, they'll say, sit down and let me have a conversation with you. When you go home, you're going to hear sounds that you have not heard for a very long time. You will hear that, yes, when you walk, your foot makes sound on the carpet, and you're going to hear that. You haven't heard that before for a long time. When you go out and work, the step on the leaves, or when the door closes and creaks, so it, yes. So they will ask you to, they'll say, please tolerate, please put up with it. In fact, if someone cannot handle it, they'll say only use it for 2 hours a day. And then maybe after a week, have 4 hours a day, and then 8 hours a day. Give it like a month, and then you cannot live without it. Because your brain got now used to those sounds, and it's not having to work as hard, so you're going to like it.
The more I've gotten used to my hearing aids,
Yes.
the more I find that I can listen on the overall
Yeah.
to lower volume.
Exactly, right.
And it blew me away a few
Yeah.
weeks ago when I first discovered that.
Right. Yeah. So that's the part where.
The same thing with glasses. Too.
Yes. Yes.
Every time you update your glasses,
Yeah.
your anxiety.
Initially, you don't like it. Yeah. Yeah.
Usually some people very dramatically.
Yes. Yeah. Your question.
So
I had a question on the affordable hearing aid.
Effort of hearing.
The affordable.
Affordable hearing. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm just trying to understand. We have AirPods now.
Yes.
Stigma with putting something in your ear or something like that. I
Yeah.
think it's much less.
Yes.
It's cool. So I see that we have decent AirPods or
Mhm.
a version of that.
Yeah.
For maybe $50 or $100.
Right.
And okay, recently
Mhm.
I bought a hearing aid.
Mm.
And it was essentially like $1,000.
Yeah. I mean, that
$1,000.
sounds cheap.
Yeah,
You got
I
it
mean,
cheap.
yeah,
$1,000
that was in
cheap.
India. So,
Yeah.
so maybe, so I'm just trying to understand
Yeah.
not just the technical, psychological, or business aspects, whatever you can address on. Do you think, is it possible to make $100 hearing aid? Because those 1.4 billion people,
They can afford.
not
Yeah.
everybody can afford that,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
I just like your perspective on that.
Yeah,
Like,
good
what are
question.
the challenges?
So first, I want to explain the cost thing of the hearing aids a little bit. So hearing aids are, up until recently, all of them were medically regulated class 2, FDA class 2 product. So that means you can just go buy anywhere. Up until recently, I'll tell you what happened recently. But the only way to get them, you go to a medical professional, an audiologist, an ENT. So the price that you're paying them, vast majority of that is the medical fee. It's the audiologist fee. The ENT doctors are expensive. They went to college. They have to take care of their rental of the office. So it's like saying, well, the medicine prescribed is only $20. So why did you charge $500 to my insurance company, right? Because the doctor, and you're paying them. So only a small fraction of what you pay for a hearing aid goes to the maker of the hearing aid. Majority of that goes to the medical professional. So that said, there is a deregulation that happened. A class of hearing aids have been called over-the-counter hearing aids. If you have only mild hearing loss, you can likely go and buy a pair of hearing aids. There was a lot of excitement about it, that, okay, now the prices are going to come down and big companies are going to get in. And they did. Like Bose got in with a lot of brouhaha. They're going to just, and then here's what happened. This story is not complete yet. So I'll tell you what the current understanding is, because this deregulation happened a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, the The OTC hearing aids are not selling well at all. It's like less than 1% of the market. It turns out much of the satisfaction and effectiveness of the hearing aid requires a detailed evaluation and fitting by an accomplished audiologist. It's not something just to put in and turn on, because I need to measure. So, just to tell you what happens, if you know this probably, if you want an audiologist, they will, I told you they'll measure your audiogram. That takes a couple of hours for them. They will then do speech audiometry to see what is your speech recognition accuracy. Another hour. They will measure your middle ear health with something called tympanometry to see if you have conductive issue in your middle ear that might require surgery or other procedures. Simple thing. Is it filled with ear wax that's preventing sound waves from going in? They have to do deep inspection and clean those things. So, you spend 5-6 hours with a doctor, and then this rehabilitation, you go home and you may not like it. So they have to be with you for months. Over-the-counter hearing aids that you buy either online or internet, or they are simply not working well.
So just one follow-up.
Yeah.
So what I understand is, in terms of hardware and what the capabilities, my understanding is the hearing aid and a typical AirPod can do the same thing. So
It's a bit
for
more
example,
sophisticated, but not like 10 times, but a bit more sophisticated.
okay. So what it means is, like, given deep learning it's like a one solution fits all.
Yeah.
Same hearing aid with a different neural network running can do noise cancellation for someone else,
Yeah.
but can work as a hearing aid for somebody else. Is
Yeah.
that fair?
Yeah. No, that's totally right, because the components are microphone, signal processing chip, a Bluetooth radio, and a battery, right? Those are the essential components of it. A lot of R&D investments go on from the hearing aid companies, because you have such a tight requirement for latency. So, when you're speaking now, part of it is getting processed through my hearing aid circuit, part of it is going straight. If there's this delay more than 10 milliseconds, I'm going to hear a copy, and its sound is going to be distorted. So there are ways that this engineering here is a lot more signal processing, a lot more sophisticated than AirPods. Even with, I say that with respect to Apple. So they have a feature called Live Listen. You try that. It's got like 100 milliseconds delay, and it's not useful. So it works like hearing aids, but it's totally useless. You can tolerate it because of the delay and latency.
I think
So-
if everybody had AI, you could walk into a room and say, "Hey Siri, play the canon from the 1812 overture." Everybody's deaf.
So yeah, once again, please. So there are folks waiting on Zoom. They are in the East Coast, so let us give them a chance. So I'll probably ask the questions from the. Or do you want to read the?
No, go ahead.
Read it then. So the first comment is smartphone. I think related to
Yeah.
the comment that Dwit made. Smartphone plus earbud should be inexpensive hearing aid.
It totally should be.
Yeah.
Except the delay, the signal from the phone to the device is on the order of 100 milliseconds for iPhone, 200 to 300 milliseconds for Android phone. And so, people can tolerate that kind of a delay between the ambient sound and the process sound. That's a problem.
Yeah. And the next comment from Vince Nakayama, I think there's a question also. I spent a decade in the audio domain working on experiences similar to what Dr. Bhowmik has shared. This is one of the best talks I've attended through this forum. Thank you so much. Is it recorded? I would love to watch it again. Yes, it is recorded, and I think the recording will stay on YouTube. Hopefully.
And thank you for your kind comment.
Yeah, thank you for the comment. Is there a generative AI that will summarize a text input generating words with many or few of the consonants that are lost with high frequencies that is more or less hearable?
Yeah, good question. So the issue is again with latency. So the generative AI LLM, one, it requires you to have a large context window in time to work. Next, it's so big I cannot have an LLM in the hearing aid. So the interconnection kills the real-time aspect of hearing aids. The generative AI will be used for personal assistant sort of use model, not for real-time sound enhancement.
Okay. What types, mobile net, etc., and sizes, number of weights of models do you use?
So we don't use any off-the-shelf model because of the the extreme need for low latency and long battery life, it's very custom model and a custom chip that we built. It's not mobile net. None of the off-the-shelf neural nets would work. It's handcrafted by us.
And the data also is probably
Data is proprietary. We collect lots and lots of data. Like anybody who's using our hearing aids consent to giving data for improving the devices.
Okay.
Like anonymized, you don't know whose data it is, where it's coming from, but we have lots of data that we use to train the neural networks.
Okay, and the next question from Thomas Moran is, what is the effect of newer cheap hearing aids on the market for such high-end devices?
That is what it is. So what I just showed is the most advanced hearing aid with the best neural net as of today. And of course, things will get better. Like every year, the industry is on a march.
Yeah. Mark Erickson says, inspiring. I was excited about the potential five plus years ago. I wonder what have been the obstacles from the delivering earlier. What are the next challenges?
It's a good question. There's time for everything. So I guess, there is the neural network approach that proved to be very effective in hearing aids. I think that this is now going to be the way for doing signal processing going forward. Well, why didn't you do it before? It takes time to develop. It's like, when computer vision became the success story for neural networks, it was clear that you should be able to do it real-time sound processing. It took us time to build the power efficient system, the small form factor that we needed for the hearing aid. Well, we have it now.
Okay, and what was the website with the woman singing for what hearing loss sounds like?
So it's, if you recorded it, that slide has the reference.
The slide has a reference, so maybe so they can go back to the video and watch it. What is an acceptable delay?
That's a good question.
Latency.
It's a few milliseconds. You don't want to go more than a few milliseconds. Human perception can handle, arguably, they say vision up to 20 milliseconds, audio or sound less than 10 milliseconds.
Okay.
We like to be much smaller than that.
And there's a comment from Dan Smith, AI could run the audio tests.
Yes, yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing some of that. Yeah.
And the last comment is a great, very informative talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll take some questions from
Yeah, back here. Yes.
You have so close to the ear.
Right.
And you have a microphone. Can you actually detect
Can you tell us? It's green? Yeah.
okay, since it's so close to the brain, can you actually detect brainwave?
Yeah.
EEG kind of things?
Thank you. Yeah, so we have an experimental project where we are trying to detect EEG. So it turns out EEG is really easy to detect if you have skull cap type of device with many sensors, many electrodes. We are able to detect some from the ear. The problem is the muscle movements produce EMG, and that mixes up with EEG. But it is possible. We have to find a good use for it. Like what are you going to use it for? The information that's relayed through EEG brainwaves, if you're only measuring it through a couple of electrodes that are closely spaced with each other, is not very useful to determine anything about the brain. So we don't yet have a compelling reason to put EEG sensors, but it's a research project for us. We're finding there are a lot more reasons to have heart rate, blood oxygen saturation, temperature, maybe blood pressure if we can do it. A lot more value for those than EEG at this point, but we will learn more. Thank you. Yeah.
I don't know if this is actually working, but it's not. Is that working? No.
No.
Test.
Yeah, maybe better. Better.
Okay. Test.
If we get this one.
Speak up here.
Maybe the battery.
You can just.
Yeah.
Okay. So I actually have two questions. But,
I'll repeat.
one was I was kind of when he asked about cheap devices, and you said the problem is you have to go through these auditory tests and all this stuff that costs a lot. I was wondering about using AI technology. You'll have the person wearing it for weeks and weeks and weeks. So you have a lot of opportunity to self-calibrate
Yes.
and learn. So could you imagine the device itself with AI technology figuring out the audio characteristics and doing that without the person involved?
Okay.
So
So the question was, could the audiometric testings be replaced with AI in the device so the device personalizes over time, fits to me? I think it's probably the next breakthrough that will happen. We are exploring quite a few things. It's hard to replace a good diagnostics. It's like there is a reason why you have to still test the blood, because there's no way to learn about my lipid panel without literally getting to the blood. So the number of things that the audiologist looks at: perforations in the eardrum, unusual buildup of wax that needs to be removed, and a scar left from your infection in the middle ear, the lack of compliance of your middle ear bones, and then audiometric evaluation of rather individual characteristics of amount of loss in hearing as a function of frequency. And on top of that, different people's ability to understand speech in different levels of noise being different. So they do what is called quick SIN, signal speech in noise testing. It's probably some of that we can get maybe through automated AI-based testings. I don't see that like replacing the professional audiologist and all their room full of equipments in the next few years. That's not practical. Maybe it would be good enough for some people, but for those that require fine tuning, and again, you brought up how people need to be rehabilitated. They need to visit those doctors multiple times and tune those devices. I don't see them, their need going away in the near future.
yeah, of course, there's different people with different economic resources and different availability doctors, but you should also build in an earwax detector into the device too, I
Yes,
think.
yeah.
But the other question I had was about frequency shifting.
Mhm.
So instead of amplifying,
Yes.
like, could you
Yeah.
have the
We
frequencies?
do
so,
that,
So
yeah.
your granddaughter sounded like James Earl Jones, and you can hear the.
So the
frequency.
way we do that today is if we find that you've got, let's say, your sensory cells got decimated for certain frequencies. Let's say you just don't hear anything from 6 to 8 kilohertz, but some of the speech signals they are important. Besides speech, it turns out the localization cues. So I said how we can close our eyes and know where the sound's coming from. Some of those localization cues are from higher frequencies. So patients who have got really bad hearing loss in the highest frequencies, they struggle the most for localizing sound, like where did the sound come from? For them, what we do is shift those frequencies to the areas where they have residual hearing left. So it's not to have speech sound differently, but it helps them with localization much better. The error goes up. So if you put something, drop something on the floor there, they might say, oh, maybe I heard it here. Their accuracy goes up when you frequency shift with the lower frequencies.
It doesn't help with fricatives and stuff like that as much, though, or?
Yeah, the meaningful fricatives, if you distort them, the speech will be distorted because, if my F, TH, S, those are now shifted low in lower frequencies, the speech will sound distorted. In fact, what we've also studied is we have an aggressive mode. I didn't get a chance to discuss all the details, but we have an aggressive speech enhancement mode. For those patients that really struggle to understand speech, and that's what they want to do, they can turn it on. We call it edge mode. It's like a powerful version of speech enhancement neural network mode. I don't like it because to me, it sounds like it's distorted. But for those that can't understand, they like it because it's helping them. So there's this interplay between distortion and understanding. And we have to strike the fine balance between people and put it in their hands where they want it to be.
Makes sense.
Yeah, you had a question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, it just
Actually, I have a bunch of questions. I will avoid all of them. Just wanted to ask one or two questions.
okay.
The number one, what are the risks and cons
Yeah.
of this device? You
Yeah.
talk about advantages, which very insightful.
Yeah.
What are the cons and risk
Yeah.
to use that?
So the only thing you can think of is their high cost. So far, what are the cons or the issues with the with the device. Why should you not use them? Yeah, risks. Yeah. So well-designed medically regulated hearing aids have circumvented what would have been the biggest potential risk, which is I mentioned how, this speaker is able to create 100 dB. So if they are not designed right, programmed right for me, for a nearly deaf person, you're doing like as much as you can, providing them 110 dB amplification. If I get exposed to 110 dB amplification, I'm going to go deaf. Like my sensory cells will go through damage. So it's like we put so much guard bands in making sure that the device, when you program it using the console for fitting, it's rock solid. It won't provide any more sound. There's multiple levels of prevention. The final level is a clamping of the output sound. We say no matter what happens, this device will not produce for this patient any more than this chart as a functional frequency. So that would have been the biggest issue potentially for hearing aids. Studies after studies after studies have not found any negative effect. For example, there are some speculations. Well, you're amplifying sound. Is that going to create more hearing loss? In fact, the opposite. People get back their hearing abilities once they start to use hearing aids. It helps with their cognitive function getting better. It reduces their risk of falling. So there isn't a, besides maybe your dog can chew it and choke on it, there isn't a known issue with the hearing aids.
Yeah, just extending the same thing when you spoke about it. What would you advise to feel abnormal, but they are not?
Yes.
Any advice for them we should start considering hearing it?
I think we should all get tested. So we should all get tested for hearing loss. Turns out many audiologists will provide you complementary testing. Because the reason they do that is because someday you're going to get hearing loss, just for sure. You saw the chart. As we age, we get hearing loss. If the audiologist provided you good service, testing your hearing, even if you don't have a hearing loss now, when you do, you'll get back to them. And so they will make money from you. You can get complementary hearing test. I would recommend everybody get tested because you have glasses, that means you have vision issues. Likely you have some hearing loss issues too.
My final question, since we talk about the falling and all, we love animals, we love elephants, we love dolphins and all. Do you have any study? Probably it's not part of this discussion now.
Mm-hmm.
How those animals auditory system works?
Yeah.
Because they also must be having hearing loss. If elephant falls,
Yes.
because their population is reducing, everybody's reducing. Maybe that could be a big step to help them to have this type of system, not right now, but maybe down the line 5 to 10 years, so that we will save them not to fall, not to die.
Right.
They are also getting old.
That's a great question. The question was, how about animals? Like, animals, do we know about their hearing system well? How about their risk of falling or other issues from their hearing loss? I'll say this field, the field of auditory neuroscience, we know about hearing more than humans, of mice, chinchillas, and cats really well. In fact, that chart I showed you, that's a frequency tuning curve, was for a cat. Because we can do invasive evaluation of their system. For human, we can do invasive testing. It's mostly, after people die. The John von Bekesi, who first did his experiments on cochlea, and everything I explained to a few slides was his work initially. He got the Nobel Prize. That was the first time somebody tested humans' cochlea. Before that, it was all cat, mice, and dog. The cat, mice, and chinchilla. We know about these animals' hearing issues. If there's a good commercial drive, perhaps people, we can build hearing aids for them, right? But there isn't currently a commercially available hearing aid for dogs.
Just for future.
But they have similar issues. But by the balance problem, for example, older dogs, or even some dogs will develop vestibular issues, and they will kind of curl because they got unbalanced, just like humans do. So their inner ear system is very similar to humans, but with a wider frequency range. Dogs and cats can hear higher frequencies than humans. Elephants can hear lower frequencies than humans. Sure.
So Dr. Achin has offered to stay back after the talk. You can ask us your questions then also.
Yep.
Because we have to give up our room.
So those of you that have to go, you have to go. And yeah, that's my email address. Feel free to reach out if you need a referral to an audiologist or an advice about a device or just a question about things. I'll be happy to continue the conversation.
So these DNN models, do you have, how big are they, how many parameters,
Right. They're rather humble, like, millions of parameters is considered big enough because I need to fit into a tiny chip, millions. Yeah. But what you're doing is like, we're not fitting into its sound and getting sound out. You saw the series of processing that's going on. The output of the last filter bank is being used as an input to the neural nets. And then the output is basically the sound going into the speaker. So we do all kinds of tricks to do it less. The battery life is really important. Nobody wants to go back in the battery life for the hearing aids. So I'll say we're the first to do it. One of our competitor companies came up with a separate chip for doing the same thing because we built a single chip with all of the analog and digital mixed signal neural net on it, a single chip for the long battery life. These guys added a separate chip, but they only get 8 hours of battery life versus ours 50. So, it's like if I make processing much more compute intensive, then the battery life will go down. So we're constantly looking at what's the right balance. Yeah.
I have two questions, one technical and one practical. From the technical side, when you get hearing aids, you got to push the button when you hear it and when you don't, and it's a really crude system, really. Is there a way, can a way be created to read the person's hearing from an electronic standpoint inside their head? Like in sleep studies, they put 45 wires glued to your head, makes it a mess the next morning, take a shower, but still they're reading things like that. It would seem that there needs a way to do that and then translate that directly into a hearing aid that has one range from 0 to some maximum.
Mm-hmm.
You follow what I'm saying?
I'm trying to see what problem we're trying to solve. So today's most modern hearing aid, the one I'm wearing, you don't have to touch anything. It will automatically, based on the analysis of the environment around you, adjust its levels. You don't have to, the old ones, you have to change the programs or change volume. You don't have to change volume much. Of course, there's an app too.
Adjustment.
Yeah, it's automatic. Yeah.
I'm talking about when
Yeah.
you're testing in the first place.
Testing. Testing is, so that goes back to the same answer I gave. There isn't, without a real probing your system, there is not much we can learn from your brain of the specific sensory degradation that happened. It's so granular. We need to know exactly, let's say, this frequency band, how much amplification we need to provide to bring you back to normal hearing. If your brain passively is not giving up any information for me to sample and probe that.
For example, maybe a micro fluctuation of the iris of the eye. Something, it seems that it's got to be something.
Something is perhaps to fit into some long-term academic research to see iris of the eye, conveys a lot of different things, but doesn't have granularity enough to precisely determine how much hearing loss you have.
I think the testing environment is something different.
Mhm.
Real environment is totally different.
Right.
You have a manual intervention in between. You have to click something, right? When you hear something,
When you're getting tested. When you're getting tested, it could be two ways. You raise your hand if you heard, no. Yeah. Or press a button.
Right?
Yeah.
So that itself can have some lag. So it may be misinterpreted into different.
So if you're already in a test with me in a room, what problem are you trying to solve? You are the best judge of did you hear or not. If I'm trying to read your brain to determine that, why would I do that? You're sitting there, tell me if you heard it. So I guess we engineers like to work on useful stuff. So what problem am I trying to solve, right? Yeah, I could spend next 10 years researching if I can let you not press the button, but I have so many other problems to solve. I'd rather work on them.
Like what are you saying? Like
Yeah.
put a cap or something.
Yeah.
You have the electrode.
EEGs, yeah. So we have a lot of those. With EEG, we can measure attention. We can measure, because, okay, think about it. Let me go a little bit to EEG because it came up multiple times. What is EEG? So you got 100 billion neurons in your head under the skull, and they are sophisticated networks that are doing specific signal processing. So you got visual cortex in the back that's basically just analyzing all of the neural pulses coming from your eye. The auditory cortex processing all the neural pulses coming from your ear. And that's just a high-level statement. But the processing of the signals, they're all looking at very specific aspects. For example, in visual cortex, certain things are looking at color. Certain things are looking at different gray levels. Certain things are looking at the morphology of the 3D environment around you. Very granular signal processing that's going on in those neural networks. Some of the aggregate electric field from those 100 billion different neurons are detectable from outside. But the best analogy I read in a book is this. Do you follow cricket or baseball? Let's say you have no idea what is cricket or what is baseball. You don't know what it is. You came from a different planet. And then you are taken outside a stadium. And inside the stadium, they're playing this. And you hear this, and just you hear the sound at an aggregate level outside the stadium. You don't see anything. Sit there and hear the sound that's coming from the stadium, 100,000 people, and make up all the rules of the game. Can you? Because the signal is so much degraded, it's just averaged out from so much rules and intricacies that's going on. You bowl like that, and that's out. Bowl like that, that's wide. There's no way you're going to sit outside, listen to 100,000 people's aggregate noise, and make up the rules of that. So there is very limited things you can do from detecting brainwaves from outside. Maybe some science fiction movies have done injustice. They have just said, oh, now you can detect everything. We engineers can detect very high-level stuff like awakeness. We can measure brainwaves and tell you what level of awareness are you in. Are you resting? Are you an elevated level of awareness? We can detect those because aggregates does tell you. For example, you can say, well, I'm hearing a lot of noise. Somebody got out. Or somebody hit a 6.
Like, when a signal level is low, your brain has to work harder.
This is not the low, this is not the intensity. This is the granularity. Yeah.
Incongruent, okay.
Yeah.
So then the brain has to work
hard. Yeah.
Can you not sense that? Say some sounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can measure that. fMRI.
Kind of indication whether this frequency at that dB is okay or not.
Yeah, so EEG will not give you the spatial resolution, but fMRI will. So we have functional magnetic resonance imaging that can tell me what part of your brain is working hard, which is what was used to determine what I just said, that people with hearing loss spend more time, more effort understanding what's going on. We knew that because of this fMRI studies. Yeah.
That can be used for? No,
because those are, to do an fMRI study, I have to take it to a lab and put you inside a big magnetic chamber. And then it's going to cost you $100,000 to build, to get measured. So no, we don't know how to do that. There is a lot of behavioral studies that you can do to evaluate you. Would you rather pay $2,000 to an audiologist, or would you pay $100,000 to Stanford Medicine to get your fMRI done? Right. That's the state of the art today. We can get breakthroughs maybe in decades from now, and things will change.
So we'll take we'll take
a lot of questions in 2 hours. Everybody's for 1 hour.
So we can if do they have to close it out? Okay, so definitely they have to close it. So I can have 1 or 2 more discussions outside, and then you can email me and we can chat.
So we'll now move on. So thanks a lot, Dr.
Thank you.
Bhowmik. It was a great talk. We are really fortunate to have you today. It's a humanitarian cause as well. So I'm pretty sure there's a lot of interest, and the discussion will continue, I'm pretty sure, even after the talk.
Thank you very much.
So I request our awards committee chair, Nominations Committee Chair, Smil Shutan, to please come forward to give a small plaque to Dr. Bhowmik.
Can someone help take a picture? Maybe you do.
Thank you. You made me overcome the stigma and now you just, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll
No,
talk to you later.
yes, of course.
Yeah, I need to.
No, these devices hopefully don't give you any stigma. They're really cute.
So if you can please hand over
It's my pleasure and honor, so it's the Speaker Appreciation Award for 2024. And I'm glad to give it to Achin Bhowmik.
Yep.
Thank you. One of the best presentations I have.
Thank you very much. I'll take a picture. So I'll share it with my team.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Unbelievable.
So please stay on for our award ceremony. So we will now move on to the award ceremony. The first award is
For hearing aids, are the costs gonna drop significantly? I think they will. I mean, all you have to do is lean in, that's $46,000.
I think we're on the verge. I think things are going to come down. They're going to come down.
A lot.
somebody
Aren't they
will
effectively
write
sorting the fees from the cost of the actual hearing?
I know Costco hearing aids are already at $1,500.
The cheapest
So
thing
is
right
that-
now.
Hello.
In Costco? That's what welfare pays. That's what they pay for. This is line lockup. This is
Oh, this is fine. You
I see.
turn it off.
Yeah, and that's quite common for.
Retired people, you know, all hit, right?
I think that
So, yeah.
so with the
So
deregulation.
Dr. Bhowmik, I think you'll have to remove your mic.
Yes.
Because we are able to hear everything that you're saying. You can turn it off. Yeah. So the first award. Why is there an echo again? So, I don't know why there's no. Okay, I will continue. So the first award is the Industry Rising Star Award. We are honoring Dwit Chenna with the IEEE Rising Star Award for his significant contributions to quantization techniques for deploying convolutional neural networks at the edge. His innovative research, showcased through publications and presentations, has advanced the fields of embedded vision, augmented reality, and edge AI. Notably, Dwit's work on practical approaches to quantizing CNNs, multimodal registration for thermal fever screening, and efficient computer vision algorithm implementation in GPUs highlight his expertise. His work with augmented reality glasses at Magic Leap and non-contact fever screening at the US FDA underscores his impact in these areas. Currently at AMD, he continues to advance efficient AI inference at the edge. Dwit's efforts in evaluating and optimizing deep learning models reflect his commitment to technical excellence. His theoretical knowledge and practical applications distinguish him as a leader in the field. Additionally, his roles as a technical committee member and reviewer for technical conferences demonstrate his broad influence and leadership in the tech community. Dvit has received other accolades such as research fellowships and awards, further attesting to his excellence. His participation as a judge at the AI Excellence Awards program and contributions as speaker at technology summits highlight his dedication to fostering growth and innovation in technology. The IEEE Computer Society Silicon Valley Rising Star Award, presented to Dvit Chenna, is a testament to his outstanding contributions to the tech community. His work embodies the spirit of innovation, impact, and leadership the award seeks to recognize. This award recognizes not just past achievements, but also the potential for future contributions that Dvit Chenna will undoubtedly continue to make. Some of the excerpts from the letters that we received from his nominators. The first is from Dr. Sai Deepika Regani, who is a senior principal scientist, Origin AI. She says that as an IEEE senior member and a technical committee member for conferences, Dvit actively shapes discussions around medical imaging, computer vision, deep learning, and edge AI. With over 20 plus published papers covering various fields, he demonstrates his expertise and dedication to advancing knowledge in these domains. Dvit's commitment to sharing knowledge, evident through presentations at prestigious events like the Embedded Vision Summit, showcases his leadership. Another nominator, Dr. Venkatamani, Professor, Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering at the National Institute of Technology at Warangal in India, says that Mr. Chenna's involvement in IEEE projects, including the IEEE Birla Science Center exhibits and IEEE engineering projects in community service, which is the popular EPICS that we all know in the IEEE community, demonstrates his commitment to applying his knowledge and skills to real-world challenges. So just in case, for those who are not familiar, Dvit told me that IEEE Birla Science Center is in India. It was an initiative to encourage students in STEM field when Dvit was an undergrad at NIT Warangal. As a team, they worked on an exhibit that explains Boolean algebra in a friendly way, even so that even children can understand. And this exhibit now has been replicated in other international locations. His professor, Dr. Mani, also says that Dvit's leadership and dedication to the success of these projects are commendable and reflect his passion for engineering and community service. Dvit won several other awards and honors. He is an IEEE senior member. He is a consumer advisor board member for the AI Accelerator Institute. He is an editor of our chapters, Feed Forward magazine. Dvit, please come forward. He is on the editorial advisory board of the IEEE Spectrum. We all know the magazine that IEEE publishes every month. He is also an advisor and panelist at the 3rd annual IEEE Standards Association Telehealth Pitch Competition. He is also involved in the ORISC research program, Center of Devices and Radiology Health at the US Food and Drug Administration. So Dvit also told me that as a Odyssey Research Fellow at the USA Food and Drug Administration, he worked towards his master thesis on non-contact fever screening methods. The work was published in conference proceedings and journals. He developed multimodal registration algorithms for thermal and visible images and worked on IPPG-based methods for temperature and heart rate measurements. He was an invited speaker at the Embedded Vision Summit 2024. He was an invited speaker for Technical Sites session at Embedded Vision Summit 2023. He was a speaker at the local ACM Technical Speaker Series in the Bay Area, and a lot more. I think I read enough. So congratulations to Dvit Chenna on receiving this IEEE Computer Society Silicon Valley Chapter's Rising Star Award. a well-deserved honor celebrating his contributions to the global technology landscape. So I request the chair, awards committee chair, Shmuel Shotan, to please give a plaque to Dwit. In the meantime, do you want
It's
to
a
say few
pleasure
words?
and an honor. Please
Sure.
say something. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I would like to thank for this recognition. And as you might have heard, IEEE has been a big part of what I've been doing from undergrad. And I had the opportunity to work with the IEEE Santa Clara Valley chapter. I was working with Dr. Vishnu, Meenakshi, Anbhu, and Shreyasi. There are just few active volunteers that I've always been working with. And I know there are a lot of people who might be interested. I really encourage you to get involved. You know, there's so much you can do just outside work, getting involved, giving back to the community, because you not just learn, but also grow along with others. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Brevity is the most appropriate. I'm impressed. I'm honored.
So the next award is shared by the father-daughter duo who helped with the most popular event of the year so far. On my invitation, the event was co-sponsored by 11 IEEE organization units from across the United States. The event attracted 81 registrations on vTools and was attended by about 50% of them, which is still impressive. The general attendance percentage has been around 30% or less for such free events. In fact, that is one of the reasons we charged a nominal $3 for this event to discourage casual registrations. The program ran for 8 weeks, offering 10 hours of online training for Google Cloud Professional Cloud Architect certification. So the award is shared by Prisha Agarwal, a senior at Dougherty Valley High School. She served as a facilitator for the program, and her dad, Atul Kumar, he's an ex-Googler, served as a faculty. So we recognize both of them with for their outstanding contribution. So Prisha with this certificate, I can't share it. One second. So Prisha Agarwal, thank you for your services. And this is the certificate for your contributions. So congratulations. We don't have a plaque for her, but great job. And we request Atul to come forward.
He embarrassed me. I cannot. But Atul.
The dad gets a plaque and daughter gets the certificate.
Proud dad.
The proud dad, yeah. So I guess I figured the problem. This echo problem is because I shared the sound from the laptop. So, but how do I?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Yeah.
You may surprise that what is this award all about it and how does it correlate with what Dr. Chin has talked about it. So there is a deep correlation between this award and your award. The correlation is we all use this cell phone and this has made our life simple, but complexity has not gone. Complexity has gone on back end. This award is to handle that complexity. When you talk about 5 millisecond latency, when you talk about storage available in Asia or Europe or anywhere. This award is for those architects who wanted to design so that your application, your invention can be used in Australia, San Francisco, or Dubai, or anywhere else. So we do that magic in back end, and you do the magic in front end. So let's shake hands for that.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So the last but not least award is presented to Anbu Devadasan, a graduate student at San Jose State University. If you have been following the impressive posts on the chapter's LinkedIn page, you will be glad to know that they were posted by Anbu. He also handled the registration at the highly successful New Frontiers in Computing conference at the Stanford University, along with his classmate Devakumar. He really set an example for other students to follow. He's currently enjoying his summer vacation in San Diego with his friends. So can't receive his plaque personally, but I will receive on his behalf because he's my student. So let us still congratulate him for his voluntary work for the chapter.